No, I didn't do the countdown thing. All right, well, we're live.
It's live. Yeah, it went straight to it.
Yeah, I did. I forgot to do the countdown. I was thinking it did it on its own. So, anyway, so if you're watching this, you probably know me because you're following my channel. This is my buddy Jason, who for quite a while was a part of NASCAR radio. He's
I
done a
think,
lot of things in the hobby. He and I have known each other for what, 20 something years?
yeah,
Gotta be,
someone.
gotta be,
Yeah,
gotta be right about that. Going back to old Morgantown, West Virginia,
yeah.
and that lid store. So we've done stuff on here before, but if anybody watches this that hasn't, just go ahead and kind of give your brief little hobby bio, what you collect,
Um,
those kind of things.
did a lot. I feel like I'm one of those people that's done everything, but not to a high degree, like or not for a long period of time. So obviously collected, sold, shows, flea markets, ran shows, autograph signings, the whole deal. Worked for Steel City Collectibles for a little bit. Did some stuff with, like you said, with NASCAR radio for a couple of years, which I think that might happen again. We'll see. Uh, I've been talking to those guys about going back and doing that and uh, trying to participate a little bit more. We've done the blogging and the podcasting, and I know I've written some stuff. I had something in Beckett a few years ago, and like I said, kind of feel like I've done a little bit of everything once or twice, but not for years and years. So now it's kind of focused on kids and work. And I mean, everything for me is Jason Dean Martin. And it's like that thing of I'll post 4 or 5 things in one day and then not again for 4 or 5 months. So I'm very sporadic as to how things happen. So
Yeah, you've got life going on, and then I'm an empty nester over here, and it's like I've been struggling a little bit. I talk about the burnout becoming more frequent and becoming more often, and I think it hit me after I posted the most recent time about that. I think part of that is, when I was single and I lived by myself, it was just what I did in my spare time. And then, when my wife and I got together, I came into, he was 12 when I met my wife,
yep.
stepson, and
Fair
it
enough.
was yeah, it was just jumping in foot first. So sometimes I needed that little escape, that getaway, and cards was that. And now that we're empty nesters and we just spend time together, I don't know. I guess it's just not that important to me anymore.
Yeah.
Still fun and it's whatever, but yeah, like you said, life and I get hot and cold. I had the blog. I still actually own the domain. It's still there. I'm still paying for it, even though I haven't written anything on there in like a year and a half. I've been considering making some changes and considering starting a podcast very specific to a certain thing, but I just haven't done it yet. Don't know if I want to. It's just a lot of work. I mean, it really is, and it feels like a second job, and I don't want a second job. Hey, thanks, Colby. Flywheels, afternoon, sir. Good to see you. I think you know Jason. I think you know Colby,
Yep.
right? Yeah, I was gonna say. I think you're in his break
Yep.
group. I
Yep.
couldn't remember. I couldn't remember if you were in there or if you were in
Yep.
Ben's or yes,
Both. Yep.
both.
Uh, it definitely is hard, man. Like, because it's funny that you said you still own the domain because I have a huge interest in intellectual property and trademarks and copyrights, and there's a few people that know that, and I talk to them more about it, and I ask certain people on Twitter or X or whatever geez was, I
It's
ask
Twitter.
them questions here and there, and I love that stuff, and I love the owning and all that of the different domains and company names that have expired and all that, and I have a handful of domains that I still pay for, and it's that, man, one day I would love to do something with it, but somebody will probably beat me to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, not a lot of people know this, and it's very, and I'm not going to act like I'm some big bad person, but like Wildcard was one that I had bought a domain and started working on a history of the company and had minor hopes of like restarting that. And then the son of the original owner just like came out of nowhere and did it. And because I had talked to the original owner about what they were doing and they weren't touching it. And it was right when COVID happened. And it seemed like the son, like I went so far as the original redemption number that's on all those redemption cards. I owned that phone number for 2 or 3 years because it was, hey, if I can ever do this, how cool would it be for that phone number to still be active? And I think the son, right when COVID hit and it, everything boomed, the son like swooped in and started everything, and he's where he's at now. But that's like always been something that I would love to do, is restart something. I'm not going to mention names because I don't want anything to ever be taken from me again, but I would love to restart something that we grew up with, over the years that's now defunct. And I have a big interest in that. We talk about, I think you and I talk about it too, because we have that Lids history of all these retail stores and like where they're at now compared to where they used to be. And we always talk about the retail sets, the Hills, Ames, all that stuff. So I think that stuff is cool. And I think it's funny that we both still have domains and some interest of things that we want to do. It's just a time crunch.
And again, for me, not wanting to feel like it's a job. I mean, there are podcasts out there that are weekly. There are podcasts out there that are twice a week. They'll release an interview segment one day, and then another day it's the other day it's their own thing. It just, I love cards, but I've been doing this for, crazy to think, but 35 years I've been collecting cards without a stop.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it just gets to be a bit much. And it just, like I said, it feels like a job. And because of that, I get burnout, and I feel like, and then it always cracks me up that people are like, hobby burnout doesn't exist. It exists. It may not exist for you, and that's okay. It's just like a lot of things. There are a lot of things out there that exist. That just because you don't feel that way doesn't mean they don't exist. And that kind of rolls into the what was it I told you? So I guess this is a good time to go ahead, and one of the things, it was the last thing that I had on that I added to the list a couple hours ago. So again, with you being married, having a couple of youngins, aren't they both 7 and under ish? I'm directionally correct, aren't I?
9 and 4.
9 and 4. Okay, he's a little older. Okay. So I know you don't do as much as you did 9-10 years ago necessarily in the hobby, but like where do you find your hobby time? Because this, like, I see these guys that have kids and they're always doing things, and I'm just like, when do you guys do this?
100% feel the same way, because I see, like, Mike Summer is one that full-time job, podcast, weekend card store, which I know he closed that up. And it was like, how does this dude do anything? Like,
does he sleep?
Yeah. And it's just like, my wife is great. My wife is very much if you want to do it, tell me and make time. And I'm so guilty of being like, she probably won't want me to do this at that time, so I'm not going to ask, and I cause my own drama. But like, my wife is great. And like for today, it was, hey, just tell me what time and you can go do this thing with Ken. But these guys that do that with more kids than I have, and it's like, I have a very flexible job that I can start and stop when I want. And I don't feel like there's enough time, let alone to do my job, but to do this extra stuff. For me, because I was on the road about a year and a half ago, 5 or 10 days at a time, and I adjusted to using ComC, because I could go to a card show, and I even bought stuff for you, and then I just mailed it to you, so I would buy stuff that I thought would be good on ComC, pack it up in whatever city I was. You print a label in the hotel lobby, and then ship cards out to ComC, and then just repeat that cycle. Every city I was in, I would go to a card show whenever I had time. And if it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't do anything. If it wasn't for ComC being this electronic card store or whatever you want to call it. And then now with their addition of the app, although it's not the greatest thing in the world, it's 100 times better than what it was of just being able to use it on the desktop.
Yeah, and I know you and I mean, we're very similar when it comes to this stuff. Both, in a lot of ways, like one of the other things with the hobby burnout is people saying, oh, well, jump to a different part of your collection or whatever the case may be, or jump to another hobby. Well, I don't have another hobby. I think you do some toy stuff, but I think that's minimal. But we both have collected just about everything card related, every sport, non-sport. So we have that similarity that it's tough to focus. And then Colby in the chat, he said, I hear you on the hobby feeling like, oh, I think I can show these. How do I do that? Do I just click on them? Oh, how about that? Go. I hear you on the hobby feeling like work sometimes. I won't be holding as many breaks in 2024 as I did last year, just for the fact of time or lack thereof. And I mean, that makes complete sense. And I mean, it is nice that you and I talk, and we are very similar, but it is cool to see Colby jump in there, and someone that is a similar age to us, has collected for a similar amount of time, has a similar family, has a family like you do. For me, it's like I said, it's just my wife and I at home. And I don't do shout outs, but as you were talking, I wanted to shout out to the great wives that support us and don't ridicule us and make fun of us and tell us it's them or the cards. I know you have a supportive wife. I do. Obviously, with all Colby does, he does as well. So shout out to you ladies. Shout out to you ladies that aren't listening to this.
I'm pretty sure, and if he's paying attention, he can correct me. But I think Colby's similar to me, as in, like, because I do cards. My wife and I have gotten into Legos, which we've not built sets, but we have bought to essentially like get our kids out of the house and build kind of thing. But I do a lot of toys, and that was my...
I'm here just off camera for a second.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So like I do a lot of toys, and that was my go-to when this boom hit of the cards and the price increases. And I hate to even say this, but I hate where the hobby is right now with all the social media stuff that goes with it. I don't like the look at me attitude, and I don't like the flexing and these stupid terms that people use. I like the ones that do it because they like it for a purpose. Like, it's cool, you want to do stock, treat it like stocks and everything like that. But then when it's just a social media person to get a check and to get follows, and it's like, all right, now I'm out. I'm going to go do something else, and I'll come back. When that fizzles, which is kind of what I've done, I've started to come back a little bit. But my big thing was, and it was all timing, when blasters went to 30, I found a better way to spend $22, like 20 after, and then tax. I found a better way to spend that and I don't want to say refound, but like rekindled my toy collecting. And like, I'm a huge wrestling toy guy, and I have bins upon bins of toys now that I've gotten back into, because I had sold a bunch of stuff in college in the early 2000s. But kind of what you were saying, people had told you was find another hobby. I had that, and I kind of lost it. So then it came back and blew up probably too strong.
Yeah, no, I can get all that. But yeah, I knew you guys kind of had that parallel. He, like I said, He collects hobbies. Those of us that are either friends with him on Facebook, follow him on Twitter, he'll tweet about those. He's Flywheels on Twitter, I think it is. If it's not Flywheels, it's Duocon Flywheels. That might be Instagram. If he wants to put that in the chat, feel free. So
let me
yeah, so I guess at the end of the day, like, now you kind of make that time when you kind of do whatever, whenever. Yeah, because like I know a lot of guys will do they'll say, okay, yeah, my wife goes to bed around 9 most nights or 10 most nights, and I'm up still 12. Well, my wife and I tend to go to bed at the same time. So and that's the way I want it. I mean, I don't want her to go to bed 2 hours and then me spend 2 hours doing other stuff. So maybe that's part of it too. But I'm just like, I just don't know where people find the time. And then again, now that we're empty nesters, it's just like I'd rather just hang out with her than make a whole bunch of YouTube videos. I don't make the YouTube videos like I did. I got burnt out on that.
Yeah.
I like these chats, and I called this catching up with, and then I put your YouTube title in there, and like you said, that's your everywhere. That's your everywhere handle.
Yep.
But yeah, like I kind of want to start doing this with some of my friends. Just get on here and just BS. I mean, we've got a list of topics, but if we get to them, great. If we don't get to them, great. It's nice to have that direction. But yeah, I just don't know where these guys find time, and it baffles me. But again, maybe it's just I'm just not as into it as I once was. I'd rather hang out with her and watch TV.
I definitely think you hit a good point of bedtime. Like, I've always been not a late night person, but like, I don't like to go to bed until 11, 12 o'clock. My wife is like lucky to make it to double digits kind of person. Like, we're just different people. But I used to 2 or 3 nights a week, I'd stay up, so say 30% of the time I would stay up and she would go to bed. But now that the kids are doing more, by the time it's 9:30, I'm like, screw this, man. I'm tired. Like, but I think before I would push through, and then now it's just more of like, what am I really doing? Is it worth that extra hour? And I kind of just decided, I guess, that it's not. So
yeah, no, and I get it. And
I'm 25, so
you're older, and you literally spent what, about 2 years in the hobby, like working as your job in the hobby.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't know, maybe that burned you out. I was thinking of something last night. My wife turned on. She started it. She only made it a few minutes in because she said the guy was too much of a douchebag. But it was something on cryptocurrency, and he was just one of your typical crypto douchebags. I was like, I don't know. He kind of reminds me of Vegas Dave. And then I remembered that you had that interview with Vegas Dave. But yeah, where the hell is that guy? Again, completely random off the topic. But yeah, he was the talk of the hobby. But I mean, how long ago was it you even worked with them? It's got to be getting close to 5 years.
Yeah, so I worked most of 18, most of 19. It's like a year and a half span, but it's like April to November or something like that. So somewhere in there, but that was obviously pre-COVID, just barely pre-COVID, but pre-social media card influencers. And I think he was that guy before it was something, because he flashed the picture and the money. But then when he had, it's not like competition, but when he had competition where it was people buying stuff every day, we're posting videos every day instead of once a year for one big card. I think he's still out there because he sold some stuff, but it's just, he's not the repetition that some of those other people were doing. Like the sports card investor dude and all those guys that are like repeatedly every single day putting up content.
And maybe it hurt that he definitely took it with Derek Carr, because that was he had the Trout was the big thing for him, but then he had like that massive Derek Carr collection, and that just never came to fruition. I mean, and he had a huge Derek Carr collection, in my opinion, for the wrong reasons. He didn't do it because he necessarily loved Derek Carr. Now, he might have, but
he did it because he was a white quarterback.
Well, because he was quarterback and he was investing in.
Oh, that's what he said. I remember that part.
Okay.
He said because he was a white quarterback, how many other people, and because there's Deshaun Watson and like all these guys, and that was like a statement that was like, okay, I'm just going to let that fly and not touch that one. But yeah, I do remember that one. So.
Yeah, I honestly didn't even remember that part. It was just so funny that, like his disappearance, it just reminds me of the crypto people. And now, granted, I muted most of the terms on Twitter, but I feel like the whole NFT thing is kind of subsided, because things will slip through cracks even when you mute terms on Twitter. I haven't seen anything about NFTs in a couple of years now. top
Well, even
NBA Top Shot and stuff.
NFTs have gone away, but I feel like if you were around in the hobby prior to COVID, and I hate to keep using that point, but man, that's where things changed.
It's junk wax era is a point. Now, granted, that's a 6-year point, and COVID is a 2-year point. But you can't, like, I hear people like,
I feel like,
yeah, well, I mean, you kind of almost apologized for it, but you know what? I hear that all the time, and I'm just like, I don't know why you're apologizing, because everything changed, and that was when we had the influencers. How many of these guys that we consider influencers had we even heard of in 2019?
Oh yeah,
very minimal.
1%. Yeah,
influencers are these guys that have been in it for like 2 or 3 years, not the guys like you and I that have been in it for 25, 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, I have no desire to be a sports card influencer. It seems like a lot of work.
So, like, the NFT thing, if you were around before COVID, Topps Bunt was NFTs before NFTs, and nobody gave a shit about Topps Bunt because it was a digital card. And the whole point of trading cards, well, not the whole point, but a major factor of trading cards is holding it. Look how many people still complain about sticker autographs, because my card wasn't touched by the person that signed it. It was touched by a factory worker that put a sticker on it, and it's 50% chance that it's upside down or wrong.
I was going to say the exact same thing as you were going there. Well played.
And it's like, Mark Jackson didn't, yeah, and if you did not see that NFTs were a huge waste of time, you're the guilty party that screwed everything up, that jacked up these prices and caused all this other issues. And granted, I get inflation, but when blasters go from 20 to 30 to 35, it's like, well, wait a minute here. Like, the prices in cards don't go on retail cards, don't go down. So it's like, you can say stuff about gas prices and whatever that fluctuate in food, but like card prices, they don't ever say, well, hey, it's too high, let's bring it back down. The only time it goes down is when it's the old product. So
welcome, Logan. Welcome, John. And John has another one. Yep. Yeah, the fractionals, all that fractional ownership that was super. It was in vogue for what, about
mine out.
Yep. 9 months or so. I don't even think it made it a year where it was just the talk of the town. Royals 417.
That's Rowley.
Welcome, Royals 417. I believe your name is Matt. Am I wrong? If I am, I'm sorry. I'm an a-hole, but you'll have that. Yeah. So, and then the thing that never got me on the digital was the people that would pay for the digital that had nothing. At least with Upper Deck EPAC, yeah, the base cards were the digital, but you were able to go up and get the silver parallels and the sparkle parallels and all of that. Hey, I got it. It is Matt. How about that? Sun even shines on a dog's ass some days. Yeah, so at least I got that. And then, the other thing I was going to throw out there that I don't tweet about, looking at prices of like cards and everything, how much is Upper Deck Series 2 going to be this year with Connor Bedard? At least that comes off wrong, but he's hurt, so maybe that'll stall it just a little bit.
Yeah.
What are the prices of Series 2 going to be? And then how much more of that are they going to print? Is it going to be 3 times what they printed for Series 1? Is it going to be 4 times what they printed for Series 1?
I know people talk about like, okay, Topps is like flagship is overprinted and like all these and it's like, to me, if you're buying that, you're not buying it for print runs. To me, I'm buying it for the set, or because there's a continuum every year. So like, I don't even think about it with that stuff.
No, I don't either, really. I only think about it from the standpoint of just the amusement purpose of how much more are they going to print? Because Series 1 did not have Connor Bedard. Now they're going to, the 89 Upper Deck with Griffey. How much are they going to churn out?
Yeah.
Again, like you, I'm not worried about the value, and I'm probably never going to have a Connor Bedard Young Guns, unless I buy like 1 box on EPAC and get super lucky.
Get it. Lucky.
That's the only way it's going to happen. But to be honest, the price of wax to chase it it'll be cheaper just buy the damn card I want. But that goes
Yeah,
back to what you said
absolutely.
about. That's kind of goes back to what you said about cutting back on wax, cutting back on blasters. Better
So
ways to just go ahead and spend that money.
yeah, so while we're talking about money and spending, and that wasn't something on the list, but I'm glad you said it because I had thought about it and then forgot. So I just bought, if you can see, because I have it blurred, but my first hobby box in like probably since I worked at Steel City Collectibles. So 5-ish years or whatever. And the big thing for me is I don't like to pay $150 at once or, whatever, $100 at once. And basically, like you said, to get nothing. I use to help with my toy and card collecting. I use the installment apps, and I actually bought that on eBay using Afterpay, which is I think it was $50 for that. So I broke it into 4 payments of $13, whatever for tax. And to me, it was like, okay, I can justify that a little bit. Not that it's a lot of money regardless, but it was like, I don't pay any extra to use this system. The seller is the one that loses the money, or the eBay is going to lose the money. But to me, it was like, hey, I can do this and not really like lose out, I guess you could say.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean, because I would do that when I was so I didn't do Montgomery Club this past year, but I had done it a couple years before. And yeah, so you'd have the option of the PayPal credit, which if the purchase is big enough, you can use PayPal credit. And then it's, if you pay it off within 6 months, there's no interest charge. Then they have the PayPal Pay in 4, where, they break it in 4 and do it every couple weeks.
Yep.
And yeah, I've done quite a few of those. And as long as, but the key is being responsible. So I listened to this guy, Clark Howard, who's a consumer guy, and he talks about how awful those things are. But the reason they're awful is because people don't keep up with the payments or whatever, and then they get charged 35% interest. But I've never had an issue. Like, I bought some cards for my buddy the other day, and I put it on the PayPal credit. I've got 6 months to pay it. So I'm just going to pay, I had no balance on it. So I know that I pay, a sixth of that for the next 6 months, and I'm good to go. I don't put anything else on the credit, so they don't have any way to say, well, we put your payment toward this and not this. I don't let them. I don't allow any of that funny business. But yeah, that's another, like you said, that's another thing I've used for, some bigger type purchases. Like I said, I would do that with when I was buying the boxes from Montgomery Club and all that. But
yeah,
that ended up being a thing. I tell you, that's something that I don't see much on Twitter anymore. People talk about. I don't know. I don't know if it's still a thing or what's going on. Hey, welcome, Mark. We got like 4 viewers now, at least 4. 8 viewers and 4 of them that have spoken. I hope everyone's having a good Sunday. We're going to wrap this up by the time the first game starts. I never really said, yeah, you and I just kind of got on here to BS a little bit. Well, I think I did say it. And then we had some topics. So, but you kind of mentioned.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, do the IndyCar, because to preface, I had seen a week ago that IndyCar was back or something. I can't even remember. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to talk to Ken, and then kind of forgot. And then you, I think, posted a video, and then I guess there was an announcement. So I kind of saw this coming, but I don't know everybody involved.
So I saw yesterday in an F1 group I'm in on Facebook, and there in that group, there are some guys that are big IndyCar fans as well as F1. And, I've been involved with F1 cards a little bit because some of the guys that do drive in the IndyCar series were former F1 drivers or F2 drivers that were in sets, things like that. But yeah, in a group yesterday, it was posted. Somebody posted a picture from IndyCar Media Days, which was this past week. A picture, and I hadn't seen it. It was from Christian Lundgaard's story. And it's funny because Christian Lundgaard, he drives the number, what's he driving? The 30, right? The 30? Yes, he drives the number 30 high V car for Letterman Lanigan Racing. David Letterman is co-owner of that team. Just
Okay.
FYI. So he's involved. But anyway, he posted a picture, I guess, on his story, and somebody had caught like a snap of it, and you could see him holding a card. And it wasn't. Now, he's been in the F1 stuff. He was in 20, 21, and 22, or 20 and 21. Sorry. He was in 20 and 21 F1 sets before coming over to the IndyCar series because he was in F2 over there. So he had done that, and it looked like it was Parkside Cards who do currently they do NWSL, which is I think the National Women's Soccer League. I think they have done lacrosse cards in the past. But I tagged my buddy Taylor and said something on Instagram. I'm like, hey, go over. I tagged you in something on Facebook. And so so a little bit later, he came back to me and he sent me a link from what did I say? Parkside Cards website. And they just had like a little one paragraph, that, yeah, we're partnering with, IndyCar to, release a card set. But I mean, no details, no configuration, no nothing, no date, no anything. And, yeah, so he sent me that. So I was like, okay, I feel that I can say this. So I did that quick little video because I was super excited. So yeah, these will be the first mainstream cards since 2007. Rittenhouse did a set in 2007. My buddy Mike Thompson did a set a couple years ago called, I think, Speedway Stars. And you actually have a set of those because that was when you were working with NASCAR Radio.
Yep.
The difference is, and the reason there's a different level of excitement with these is because it's modern, it's current drivers. His was a legend set. He has, I don't know what I can say and what I can't, but he has quite the archive of photographs that he can use. And he used those for the photographs for these. But these weren't current drivers. I think there might have been a couple of current drivers. But in general, I think it was 25 card set, and I feel like probably 20 of them were legends, retired, many deceased. I think about a third of the drivers are deceased. But this is something, and as far as jump starting a potential segment of the hobby, again, I understand that IndyCar does not have the following of any of the big four, of NASCAR, of F1. I get that. But, for a smaller company like Parkside, this might be big because there are people that are interested. And for me, I think the thing that potentially helps is it's guys that are at the track week in, week out. IndyCar does a weekly autograph set, or does an autograph session at every race, usually 45 minutes, where every driver participates. And now this is something other than hero cards. This opens up TTM. So like some of these guys don't have cards at all. So yeah. I literally bought, they're actually somewhat hard to find, but I actually bought and got a couple weeks ago. This is an old, it's just a deck of cards because I've seen people use decks of cards to get signatures, but it's got the Indy 500. Let me do it because I got that blur, but the Indy 500 logo on it. But I didn't think about it when I bought it. It's a black background. So if they use a black Sharpie or a blue Sharpie, which 99% of TTM, they're not going to show up. So I need to find something with a lighter background. But yeah, just the excitement of this and, the Chip Ganassi racing cards that they produced last year. I think when we talked about those, when I talked about them on NASCAR Radio, I think you were still on the show then. Those things actually became... They're just not out there. You don't find them much on eBay. When you do find the autographs, people are asking a couple $100 and they're selling sometimes for $100. It's kind of ridiculous. But again, I don't know. Is there a dozen people looking for them, or are there 1,200 people looking for them? They're just so rare. The autographs, for example, there's only 100 of each, so and not many have shown up.
The ones that are coming, are they going to be packs or
don't know?
Okay, don't know. It cut out on me for a minute, so I wasn't sure what I missed.
Don't know that. Yes, this is my 1980 and earlier is vintage shirt that I got from Mr. John Keating. I believe you can buy that from him. I got this after I had a Twitter interaction with one of the influencers. I don't know if you remember that one, Jason. a female influencer that's been in the hobby for like a year that called early 90s basketball vintage. And then I got blocked. But anyway, enough of that. Yeah, so I said breaking, and I did that video yesterday. Well, come to find out, Tony Donahue, who does work with IndyCar, he was actually at Media Days, and he actually did post that earlier in the week that there was stuff coming. So it wasn't like I was necessarily breaking anything. All credit to Tony. I did in the video, actually, I did down in the description, I did put that he had done that. But he had tweeted that it looked like it might be like a 25 card box of some sort. I don't have the exact tweet in front of me. So it might be, I don't know if that means it's a 25 card set or if that means it's like a configuration where it's 1 pack per box. That when I hear 25 cards, I feel like I'm thinking it's probably like a 1 pack per box. Yeah. But no real details. Yeah, I mean, you talk about should hand out cards at the races. Actually, on NASCAR radio a couple weeks ago, I had a lot of good conversation about that. And then they did.
We talk about that all the time.
And then they do hand out hero cards at races. That's one thing that makes racing a bit different than the other sports. Yeah, you can get those hero cards and they sign them, but they're not trading card size. They're typically more in the 5x7, 8x10 range. And if you're a card collector like Jason and I and you and basically everybody that's in this chat, we have collected cards for so long that everything we have fits cards. Now, I know some guys collect comics and things, and, for hero cards, a lot of the stuff they have would probably work, or at least could work.
I don't mind bigger things like, say, the hero cards, because I did a lot more through the mail in the early 2000s, and NASCAR was one that I did a lot of because they were almost a guarantee. To some degree, you were going to get something back. And typically it was 8.5 by 11, sheet of paper size hero cards. I don't mind the bigger things when there are more than one. Now, if I have boxes upon boxes of cards and then you give me an 8x10 photo or a 5x7 card, then that's when I'm kind of pissed, because then it's like, what's this one thing going to do besides just screw up my organization? So it's like all or nothing. I'd rather have nothing than one, and I'd rather have all of them than one. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's a weird thing. But
and going back to what John said, my hope would be, and this was what the NASCAR radio guys were talking about, why aren't they selling those at the track? Yeah, in the NASCAR gift shop, or even the other haulers, because I know every team used to have a hauler, I think, or every driver used to have a hauler. Now I think it's more condensed down to teams, and it's only certain teams. But yeah, I mean, that's how you get that exposure. But yeah, so that was kind of, there's not, I don't want to say it's much ado about nothing. It's just, I'm very excited, but I have obviously very little detail. I don't know if those are going to be out by the start of the season, which is actually less than 2 months away. If we're talking by Indy 500 time, which is, everything kicks up at Indy in mid-May, or if we're talking like tops with F1 and not until after the next season. Or NASCAR with Panini, they've only released one 2021 set, and we start the 2022 season next month.
Which we've been around for a long time. And I know the people in the chat have been around for a long time, because I know most of those people in there. Out of all the complaints and all the bitchy moments that I can have about things that go wrong, the biggest one is when a card set gets released in 2024 and it's a 2023. Like, there is not a single thing in the hobby that irritates me more than that. Because it's like, it's not my fault. You snooze, you lose, buddy. Like, you should have released it in 2023. Just move on to the next year, or whatever. But it's just that thing of, it doesn't, as a numbers person, it doesn't make sense to me. And it should be illegal. Like, it just drives me absolutely insane.
The more recent where it's been production issues, I actually have a little sympathy. And even the ones where it was like national treasures, I get it because they did strive for so long to have everything be on card or Upper Deck the Cup. That's why
I
it was like,
know.
so I give, but yeah, not just every whatever. Again, NASCAR, the only thing that came out this year was Donruss for 20. The only thing that came out last year for 2023 in 2023 for 2023 was Donruss. And then I think I saw that like maybe in the next 2 months, there's like 3 new releases coming out.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
no, I get what John's saying. Yeah, I think the problem with that is you probably are so far into the production there, just you put so
Right.
much
I get it.
you put so much money into. I get it. I get both sides, and I'm not gonna die on either hill. So I definitely get it. And I get what John's saying. Yeah, football, basketball, even baseball rookies were delayed back in the day. I get that, but we are at a different place in time at this point where that
Even
should be.
even with basketball though, because that was one thing that as a kid it was like always like, why do they do this? And it was always 90, 91 hoops, 91, 92 Fleer. It was always 2 years on the product name or, however it was cataloged. And granted, obviously baseball, it's all in the same calendar season. Football is not technically, and hockey's not. But I just always thought that was interesting that for basketball, they did that. When
And same with hockey. And same with hockey, who runs the very similar season.
I just thought it was always interesting that they don't do it like for football or you know what I mean. And but again, yeah, for sure. What he just put up.
Yeah, and then I mean, we can argue Jordan or whatever, but Star was what we had during his time, during his rookie season. So, some people don't, some people want to crap on the Star. Again, not a hill I'm going to fight on either way. But yeah, like you said, you were talking about the same year. I was going to say one of my thing. I wasn't going to show all these, but I've been getting into a few breaks. These are 3 different breaks from KT Authentics, and they're all Dallas Stars. These are actually all 3. It was a half case of, what was it? It was a half case of Metal Universe, which we know the popularity of the Metal Universe, and a half case of SP Authentic. Well, these were all ones that I've done over the last, 6 weeks, but are 2022, 2023 product, because they had Wyatt Johnston rookies in it, and there's still stuff coming out. And yeah, we're halfway into the next season. But again, I get it. I mean, Upper Deck has always been that way, so I guess I give them a little bit of leeway, just because they're not making excuses. They kind of just, again, we know the Cup's going to be out toward the end of the next season, but most of that stuff, at least for a time, was hard signed. Like, they did not put sticker autos in the Cup, because you're getting, what is that, 6 or 8 cards, and it's like $500 for a 10. Well, yeah, I want my cards to be on.
Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah, I'll be willing to wait. If I, not that I have ever bought a 10 of the Cup hockey. I have a couple of cards, but I've never bought the box. So, yeah, so I kind of segued into, I was just going to kind of mention those in mail, and I actually was just in another break last night of Artifacts. It was 2 cases of Artifacts, I think. Or no, 1 case of Artifacts, and I hit a Mike Modano autograph. So that was fun for the Stars. But yeah, so I guess we can start with number 1 on our list. So yeah, we both talked a little bit about it, but yeah. So like, what kind of recent mail have you gotten in? Carlos. And Carlos is a big hockey card guy, so he knows old info, my dude. 500 for a 10 is the good old days. Very true, Carlos. I've just kind of gotten back into hockey, and it's really just what I'm buying I'm buying into some Stars breaks, just because, 82 games, and my wife and I probably watch at least 60 games a year. So just as a passive Stars fan. But yeah, I have no idea. You feel free to put in the chat what a 10 of, how many are in a 10, if it's 6 or 8. I think it might be 8, and what the price is. So anyway, back to you, Jason.
So I actually just made a purchase before we started doing this, and I'm going to share the screen because I know a couple people will get a kick out of this. But let me share.
Check that out real quick.
Yeah, that's insane.
And that's so I feel like it's like a 75% whatever. So I'm thinking that's probably 800 US if my math is right. My math's probably not right. But yeah, I feel like when I've bought from Canada recently, like the conversion rate's like 75 to 100 or something. But
Yeah.
that's just asinine.
So here, I'll share real quick a purchase that I just made. The person had 2 Stratomatic signed cards. They were Josh Fogg signed. That is something I don't have, that I've never had. So they had the 2002 and the 2003. So I just bought those right before we went on the show or went live.
Would you say Stratomatic, like the game?
Yep.
Okay. I didn't know that was still a thing. I knew the APBA was for a time.
So
when was the last time you added to the Josh Fogg collection? Something unique.
We're at like a year. Probably a year, maybe 2. Somebody had a card on COMC like randomly that it was like a 2003 something. So I randomly got that. And then somebody that lives in the Tampa area actually went to a Goodwill and found like 12 articles of uniform from Josh Fogg, like just like random pants and stuff like this. And he knew that I collected Fogg because I'd bought off of him earlier. Bought a jersey or something. And he said, "Hey man, I found all this stuff at Goodwill. I assume it's legit, blah, blah, blah." Well, I've talked to Josh Fogg through Twitter, and I sent him pictures, and I'm like, "Hey, is this your stuff I'm about to buy from somebody?" And he's like, "I accidentally donated that to Goodwill." He said, "That is 100% my stuff." He said, "So yeah, go ahead and buy it." And then he's like, "If you find any more, if I find any more," he said, "if he finds any more in his house or something, he'll donate it to me instead of to Goodwill next time." But he didn't mean to, but he's like, "Yep, those are my pants," and they have like Fogg stitched in the waistband and all that stuff. But that's like maybe a year and a half ago.
I don't think you haven't mentioned that story to me. It just must have gotten
it was
lost
like
in
a
conversation somewhere.
Yeah, probably. They're in my storage unit. Like I haven't even done anything with it. And then the other thing I actually got, I found that Neil Bonnet, which was the 90 Max Holly Farms autograph. So I did find that.
So that's for that. Yeah, I'm running into that same thing with the blur. Yeah, so for those that don't know, Jason's working on trying to complete that set signed, which maybe we'll talk about because we both got some set projects we're working on.
That one, and then we talked about COMC earlier, and COMC, you could always send cards through them to get graded, but it was always like CSG, CGS, whatever it was called. And I had done a couple just to test the process, but I did wrestling because it's a different market for wrestling cards than it is baseball and football. Good process. And then PSA started with them within the past year. I submitted a Adley Rushman 2019 Bowman Draft Chrome Refractor. I submitted it through them. My card I sent to COMC, then COMC sent to PSA, and it came back as a PSA 10.
So I was going to ask, how you felt going in, because I didn't realize it was one you sent in. I knew. It's just like, people that are just like buying them and then sending them in. I'm like, and I've seen that with hockey with like cards, that like they just got that were like an E-Pack card. I'm like, you have a stock photo. You don't even know what the hell they're going to send.
Yeah.
They might literally send a PSA 2 card.
Yeah. I knew, like, I'm pretty good. Like, I won't waste the money if I don't think it's going to at least a 9, which is kind of one of the other topics we might talk about. But I knew, like, there was nothing wrong with that card. I did buy it on eBay originally and got lucky with the condition, but when I sent it, I knew if it came back anything less than a 10 that something had happened in transition, like in between me and them. I did send a 93 Topps Jeter because I also thought it would gem, and I got an 8. I was pretty pissed about that one. That was kind of one of the topics I wanted to talk about if we have time, but I don't know why it got an 8. Like, it's unfathomable to me. It's how that happened. I don't send many cards in, and I have a pretty good ratio of at least getting what I think it's going to get. So for that one to get an 8, like if it had come back a 9, I could have been like, okay, you know, whatever. But to go from thinking it's a 10 to get an 8, I'm pretty, I'm upset, but also like confused. So we'll talk more about it later, but
yeah, so we can go on to the grading stuff you want to talk about. Let's go ahead. Did you have any other mail you wanted to show? Did you?
No, that's it for me. I mean,
okay.
I don't do,
because as we've talked about, you've kind of slowed down on pickups, just trying to be way more focused. It seems like you picked up that Neil Bonnet for that set, but yeah, that's one you're not going to see very often. Just knowing that he passed away, 20 years ago? Was it 94?
Yeah, and I'm down to 9 cards. I think I need.
What are the big, and how? Okay, so of those 9, how many are deceased? I'm going to guess almost all.
It's like 7 or something like that.
Makes sense.
I need Dale Sr., obviously deceased. Dale Sr., Rusty Wallace, Mark Martin, Davey Allison, Alan Kulwicki, Ricky Rudd, Michael Waltrip. So I need 7, and 1, 2.
I heard 3 that are still alive. 3 that are still alive.
Well, Kulwicki's passed, right?
Yeah.
Davey Allison.
Mm-hmm.
And Dale Sr.
Okay.
Ricky Rudd and Michael Waltrip are both living.
Martin is still living. Yep.
Martin. So I need
Rudd just does not sign. Apparently, he doesn't sign through the mail, and then he doesn't really do much in the way of appearances. So, and Martin used to sign through the mail, but has stopped.
The one I have seen a couple, because this is 90 Max Holly Farm, so it's the same card as the base set, but it has that logo. I've seen the regular cards signed for a couple people, but not the one with the logo that I need for that retail, because it's essentially a food set, food retail, whatever. But
so, what's your thought on buying the regular one and then just as a placeholder? Or is that just something you're not interested in?
Waste of time. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. I can't argue that. Yeah.
Whatever else you have, and then if you want to go into the grading, we can do that. Whatever else.
So yeah, since I don't do videos anymore, or rarely do, because like I said, it's a lot of work to pull everything up and do that. Maybe if I had a dedicated space where I just left everything set up, but so Mrs. Bean's Ball Card Blog she's just not going to buy me singles or buy me cards. She'll buy, the occasional blaster or packs or something like that, just because she knows I get that urge every once in a while to open up. But she got me a gift card for Christmas, and something I had been looking for a couple years had come up just a couple days prior. So before we even left to go to the big family Christmas, I made a purchase. It's this Panini, and I don't know if they were to order or what. It's from, let me look here, 2017. I thought it was 2016. But it's a set of WVU cards. That's like a 25 card set. But I had wanted it because the Mountaineers, I'm definitely going to change what I do. I pretty much only want them in their WVU uniforms. Now, if they don't have anything, that's another story. Then, yeah, I got to have some pro. But the surprise to me, because the dude had put like 20 of the cards, had shown 20 of the cards, but he didn't show them all. And he showed this one, and he didn't show this one. And there is Stella, for those who asked earlier. And I didn't say hello to Diego, Mark, and if I missed anybody else, I apologize. But this is probably my second or third favorite Mountaineer of all time. and this is the only card that he's in a WVU uniform in that I have found, and that's Bruce Irvin. He's got plenty of NFL cards.
A ton of Seahawks, yeah.
And he was like the 11th pick that year, maybe.
He was high because I remember being surprised.
Oh, and that was this is a terrible pick and blah, 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 blah. And I mean, he made a couple it turned out he's been a long time, he's still in the NFL. And he's been in the NFL for like a decade. So, I mean, it worked out, but he's one of my favorites. And I mean, the dude just loves West Virginia. He's not from West Virginia originally, but I mean, is basically adopted Morgantown and WVU. But yeah, so that was a pleasant surprise. So this was a great gift from my wife via gift card, but I give her all the credit for that. A couple others, and yes, I will provide a Stella update momentarily. I did post this one on Instagram, so some of you may have seen it. But this is a great example of, you know what? I'm just going to have to get rid of the blurring, I think. Hold, just please. Yeah. You'll have to see all the mess behind me. There's Stella. So this is, sorry for the glare and whatnot. So that is 1996 Select. It's an In Fuego card. It's Pinnacle. Well, Select, but Pinnacle brand. Ken Griffey Jr. I found these because Dan Patrick has a card in that set, and I'm going to get one of those at some point. And I just got, it's Dufex. I love Dufex. Don't we all love Dufex if we're collecting during that time? But I also posted on Instagram, that's an example of a card that probably I shouldn't have bought, and I'm trying to be better about that this year. And Stella is up and down and does not know what to do. Because it really doesn't fit into the, so I have kind of done some hobby goals myself, and it's an example of one that I probably should not have bought, but at the same time, it's a Ken Griffey Jr. We're of that age where, during our formative years, he was the shit. After Bo and Bo's injuries, Griffey was the next superstar, really, of baseball. So, speaking of, so I bought this one night and was like, oh, I may have overpaid. 87 Tops, but it's the Rediscover. It's got it on the side. It's the copper version. So I got that because, like Shoebox Legends, I have a Franken set. I'm just not organized or don't do things like he does. But this is how the card was shipped, in a sleeve. They did not put it in a top loader.
It's a lot more that happening.
I paid $20 for that. I could see if it's a $3 card, you might be willing to eat it. But yeah, if that card's come damaged, you're refunding my $20. But oh my gosh, Stella, you're being ridiculous. So this one, I checked when it came up. I checked with my buddy Taylor, whose name will come up again. So this is a Futura. This was an F1 set. It was limited to 500 sets. They were released as a set and only in Europe and I think South America. And that is Dan Weldon, who is one of my favorite all-time drivers, two-time Indy 500 winner.
What year is that?
This is 2006. They did the Futura sets for, I think, 3 years. Maybe it was only 2.
That's the one that has the big Lewis Hamilton.
One of them has a Lewis Hamilton. A lot of them go for a lot of money
or something.
Relics, Schumacher relics that just go for stupid amounts. But yeah, I was really happy to get this. Had to pay a little bit more than I wanted, but it was coming from Australia. But it's literally the first time I had seen that thing available on eBay. And so I asked my buddy Taylor, who knows a little bit more about it because he's into F1 cards way more. I'm only in it pretty much from the IndyCar aspect of it. I'm not a big F1 fan. It bores me. But anyway, so that was one. I did get just a couple weeks ago. This is the Rangers championship set from Topps. I'm not a baseball fan, but we watched all of the ALCS and all the World Series, and we were down at the stadium the day of the parade because my wife works right there. So just kind of pick that up from 20 years down the road. That'll be a fun thing to look at and be like, I remember that. I remember that, she and I watched other than the game I had to miss because I worked one night, we watched every game, and she watched the game the night I was working by herself. Now she's probably more of a sports fan than maybe the average hobby wife, because again, we watch Stars games together, and that's because she's a Stars fan. So I've become a Stars fan by association. And speaking of Stars, I did pick this one up recently. This is a high gloss Trevor Daly. When I got here, he was kind of my favorite player for them, a defenseman. But the high gloss are numbered out of 10, and it's one of those sets that they've done for decades. So it has that cachet of something that you just get year over year over year. And again, they're all serial numbered to 10. Some of the early sets had like out of 25 or something, but then this one you'll recognize not the guy that autographed it, Jason, but you'll probably recognize the other guy.
I
If you
still
can
love
make
that
out the
card.
picture.
I see
So, yeah.
Hostetler twice a week in Lowe's.
Oh, do you really? So is he not living in the Morgantown area? Is he more up your way?
No, I see him in Morgantown.
Oh, okay. Well, I know he's originally from PA, and I don't know from like Hossople or Hopsople, or I just remember it because it was such a weird
I see him in
name.
Morgantown.
Yeah, so I got that, and then I want to get the one from that set as well. So these were actually pack pulled. These are from 92, 93, something like that. But that is Jeff Hostetler, who played football at WVU, and then that is Coach Don Nealon, who is definitely the most legendary coach in WVU history, and also Jeff Hostetler's father-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love the old, it's just you can't really make it out, but the old like West Virginia sweater, just in the just bold, font. But yeah, so that's it on the recent pickups I wanted to show. Some of them still may show up on Instagram, but oh no, it's not. I forgot the big one. These came yesterday, and I said I'd mention my friend Taylor again. And if Logan's still around, he knows what these are. You may know what these are from conversations on NASCAR radio. So these are, I believe, these are 1965 per what I can find online from the carburetor shop, because there's just not a lot of information on these. These are Marhofer. We call them trading cards, but what they were, they're you would definitely be considered a food issue, because that was a meat company, and these were actually used as backers for hot dogs. But a regional issue, because the company was in Indiana. Yeah, sorry, I'm terrible at this. But I got a Johnny Rutherford who lives like, I don't know, 20 minutes from me. Multiple time, I think 3-time Indy 500 winner. Got the Lloyd Ruby, who was from Wichita Falls, which is a couple hours from here. Until Michael Andretti, he was considered the greatest driver in Indy 500 history to never win the race. Kind of a dubious distinction, but at the same time, I guess it's better to be remembered than that than not be remembered at all. Mm-hmm. And then come to find out, I actually had this already. I wanted it because it was Lloyd Ruby and he's Texan, but come to find out, I actually had that. I didn't think I had any of these 1965s, but I did. And then this was a spare that he had, a Roger McCluskey. So I got to add 3 of those at once. I mean, these things just don't show up. I've got to do a better job of searching auction houses, hoping those will come up. Last year, I was able to, Ripley Auctions, which is out of Indianapolis, I was able to pick up a different Rutherford and an AJ Foyt. But these things are rare, scarce, and the prices have just gone up and up over the last 5 to 10 years on those. Let's see. Nothing worse for America than Texas anything winning a championship. I don't know. I would say maybe it's Philly, all those classy people in Philly. But what do I know? Did not liquidate any Geno Smith. I am going to get rid of a lot of the stuff, especially the pro stuff, because I just don't care about that. And I'm trying to downsize and focus. And he's got so much West Virginia stuff, so much cool stuff. Upper Deck was doing college product then during his rookie season. So got a lot of that. Logan loves Wiener cards.
Shocker.
Lots of people love Wiener cards. John likes the design on those Rutherfords. Yeah, there's 5 different seasons they did them, and they're all similar. This is the one that looks the most different because it's got so much black on it. Most of them are more just like black and white photos, but almost on like a cream-colored stock. And then a question for you, Jason. What toys lines do you collect, current, vintage, or both?
So let me...
and let me say one other thing for those that just joined. We're going to we're going to top this off at about 25 more minutes, so everybody can get to the NFL games if they so desire.
All right, so we might not do grading because I feel like we've talked about grading before. So,
All good.
All right, so for Colby, big wrestling figure collector. A couple of things that I have bought recently are these. They're called Big Rubber Guys. But I have a bunch on pre-order too. So basically, everybody knows the.
Just trying to figure out how to break your screen bigger, and I don't know how to do it.
Everybody knows the LJNs from the 80s. There are 2 wrestlers that started their own toy company that are recreating some toy lines and adding people that we didn't get originally. So that's what these Big Rubber Guys are. This is Demolition. But there's some other ones. They have like Marty Jannetty, Ric Flair, Andre the Giant, Macho Man coming. I do G.I. Joe Classified. This is like the 6-inch version of what we grew up with in the 80s. The cool thing about these is they all have a number. So no matter if it's a special edition or just a regular Target, they all have a number. So I can keep track easily. And actually a lot of stores like Ross and TJ Maxx and Marshalls have been getting those for Christmas toys. So I've been getting them a couple for like $5.99 that I didn't have. Ollie's is a big store that has that. I got lights in my Lego, NECA, some NECA. Like we just bought Freddie Mercury NECA figure. But I have like some Back to the Future, some different stuff, and everything. Ghostbusters. I don't do a lot of vintage just because, again, it's out of my price range. I would rather buy something now and hold it for 20 years. So like the new Ghostbuster movies, we bought a bunch of toys from that. I do a lot of Muppets and Muppet Baby things. That's Fraggle Rock, anything I can get, I do that. Anything Jim Henson, pretty much I do. A lot of wrestling, like you can see, Sting, a bunch of Ultimates up there, RVD, The Rock, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar. I mean, those are $30 a piece, but to me, that's $30 that I would rather spend than I know what I'm getting versus a $30 blaster is not like it's a total surprise. It's a total lottery ticket. So that's when I said earlier, when that $20 was being well spent in other places, those are the other places.
It's the equivalent of buying the card instead of the card you want instead of the 12 boxes it takes to get it. It's a different thing. You know what you're getting and all that. So I wanted to ask on the Demolition one, is that the original? Is that Axe and Smash? The 2 original guys?
So this is Axe and Smash.
Okay.
So the difference is, like they're creating a whole line of these, and they feel like the originals. But like for these examples, if I wanted to get the originals, it's like a few $100s. These are $50, and they actually did their packaging to where it's like the plastic where the cardboard slides out, and then you could take it out and put it back in. It's not like you open it and it's done. You're freezing on me. But like they're doing Andre the Giant, Ric Flair, but it's new poses, or they were super expensive and now they're not because it's the new version. It's funny that he brings that up. I did not buy that either. So it's one of the old toys, but they made like a $400 version, like made it bigger. Some people have been finding it at Ross for like $60. No, I'm not one of the lucky ones, but so toys have definitely crept back in. But my son does it, my wife does it. She buys Jurassic Park figures a lot. But I grew up with this. My grandmother collected toys like Michael Jackson dolls and MC Hammer, like all this pop culture stuff, man, she had Steve Urkel and Pee Wee Herman. Pee Wee Herman is like Pee Wee Herman and Mr. T are like my favorites. My son watches Alf and Fraggle Rock and Muppets. Like, we're definitely a big toy family. Like, my son keeps boxes for his figures. You know, he's in deep already, and he's 9. So,
and I can believe that, because I mean, when we see card shows, I mean, we see these kids that are taking good care of their cards, and I was one that, in general, at least the better cards, even as a 8,
Yeah.
9, 10-year-old, I was taking care of them. My parents, you know, my mom was buying me top loaders and stuff to, you know, put the best cards in, or I had them in binders at least, so they weren't getting some of the just, you know, typical wear and tear. Yeah, when I was asking about the original, I was just meaning Axe and Smash instead of Crush, because heck, I might need to get that for my WVU collection.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Yeah. The first of 3 former WVU, first of 3 people that has performed at WrestleMania that also attended West Virginia University. And I'm sure you can name the other 2.
I know one. I was just trying to find his wrestling figure.
So I'm assuming that is the actual wrestler.
Pat McAfee.
He's got a figure?
Yeah, he's got 2.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah,
Okay,
he's got a $12 one and a $20 one.
Pat McAfee's one of the 2. I mean, honestly, none of the 3 are super mainstream, but yeah, you kind of figure that's why I classified it the way I did and said, you know, that have performed there. And then I reminded you who the other one was a few months ago when we were talking.
And I'm blanking.
I can't remember what his name is now, but in TNA, he was Zema Ion.
Oh, yeah.
Is he still even in WWE? He was in that clique. It was
Joaquin Wilde. Isn't that him?
Yes, that is him, now that you say it.
Yep.
Yeah. 3 Mountaineers that have performed at WrestleMania. I mean, there may have been other pro wrestlers, but those are the 3 that were at Logan. Yeah, Logan's so old he remembers not having top loaders.
That's crazy. I mean, I don't mean it funnily, but that's a crazy thing because we're so accustomed to just having it.
Mm-hmm. When Rich and Rich Klein will be on Dr. Beckett's, and, you know, every once in a while they'll talk about shows back in the 70s. And yeah, I mean, that's just how it was. People just had stacks of cards sitting on a table at a card show, may or may not have had rubber bands around them. But yeah, there were no top loaders. There weren't really the white boxes that we use now. You know, they were just in whatever they had.
Yeah. Well, even I remember 91 Upper Deck Baseball was huge because, for its time, because that was the first Bo Jackson White Sox card. Mm-hmm. Was the Upper Deck. And I remember buying it at Alamo in Fairmont, and he had 20 of them or whatever in one of those clear cases. And he pulled one out and handed it to me. Like, no sleeve, no top loader. I mean, it was $1 card, but still at the same time, like, we weren't, you know, too far into having the sleeves and top loaders in 91. So I don't know when it started, but I can kind of remember it too. Yeah.
The first cards I had were given to me by my uncle, Christmas 1986. And it was in a binder. So we had sheets then, and I feel like I remember having top loaders. But yeah, it might have even been more early, just a couple years before I even got into it. But I do remember pages, and I don't really remember not having sleeves and top loaders available. And then, of course, then we got to the big screw downs that, you know, the 4-screw downs that everybody hates. And, you know, I remember those, and then those went away. So things have definitely changed. I was going to go into another one. This is one that we don't need to spend much time on, but what were your Topps Series 1 design, or Topps flagship for next year design thoughts?
So I'm sure most, if not everybody in here, has seen it. It has like what are those, like neon light?
Like a neon sign. Somebody mentioned like Cocktail, if you remember the movie.
That's a pretty good reference.
Yeah, and somebody mentioned another one that was similar to that, but I can't remember what it was. I figure everybody's seen them that's in here.
I will say, I feel like, and the color parallels have been around for 25 years ish. I appreciate the designs because I'm sure they take into consideration, okay, what's the Mother's Day and the Father's Day and the Independence Day? What are these borders going to look like? And the base card, I'm not a huge fan of, but I saw a mock up of, I think it was the Independence Day, and it had the flag around, and it was decent enough to where it was like, okay, you can readily tell that's that parallel. The ones where it's like different foil lettering or whatever, and they're difficult to see right away, like those are tough. I like the ones where it's, hey man, this is noticeable right away. So in that sense, I'm okay with it. It's not my favorite design, but there's been a lot of designs that weren't my favorite that now are like, yeah, it's fine. It was just that year, you know.
I will say, so I like it, but I am a party that it doesn't really matter what I think because I'm not going to be buying any of them. But I like it. I like that it's significantly different than what we've been seeing the last few years. It's a little interesting in that it reminds me of that era where I've always thought, like, what was it, like 75 and 72, like where you look back on them now 40 years later and like, okay, that's a design that's really reflective of that time. 72, it's kind of a psychedelic, kind of, and then the two-tone in the 70s, just kind of thinking of American culture at that point. Yeah, the neon design struck me as like it's not something that hits me as a now thing, but I still like it. And I did hear some comparisons to 86 tops. So, of course, that one's, I get what they're saying. I don't necessarily agree, but I think it's a pretty solid design. I can say that if they had IndyCar and they used that design, I would be pretty excited about it. I thought it was well done.
I kind of think I feel this way every year when I first see it, where I'm not like, it's whatever. And then by the time I'm buying packs of it, it's like, it is what it is. You saying 75 was a good reference because I was kind of thinking, oh, this is a little funky, kind of like 90 tops was. Like, it's colorful, and 91, where it was the anniversary set, was like a very basic white with a couple pinstripes or whatever, and or border lines, you know what I mean? But I think you're right on, and kind of what I was thinking too is just it's something different, and then we'll go back to a normal white or something next year. Then they alternate here and there. So,
or is this the first? I mean, when did this start getting worked on, and how much Fanatics influence does it have? How much is Fanatics saying? How much is Fanatics saying? No, you're not going to be that lazy anymore. I'm not being a Fanatics bootlicker. I don't have any thoughts either way on it. It's just something that I thought of because it is a relatively big change from what's been done the last decade or so. But again, I kind of like it. So I would say it seemed like overall the response was way more positive than normal.
Yeah, which kind of surprised me. You're not wrong in the sense of maybe Fanatics did have something to do with this. Maybe it's new leadership and new people making decisions. But then also going back to what was just said, was you saw a lot of positive feedback, and I did too, which kind of surprised me. I wonder if you saw feedback from newer collectors versus probably half the people that are in here that are over 40, and which, granted, you're a couple years older than me and you like the design, but at the same time, was that positive feedback from 30 and under? I would love to see some breakdown like that. Totally agree with him as well.
I didn't. Again, one of those things that it's not in my collecting realm. So, didn't really think that deeply into it, but that's also a very good point. I know Matt asked for a Stella update. So I had posted a few weeks back that she was probably going to have surgery. So what happened was her ear filled up with blood. Basically, she has dog cauliflower ear. So I had to go have it. So we had to go have it drained. They said basically we do 3 strikes and you're out. If it fills up 3 times, we're going to have to do surgery because it's just going to fill back up.
Yeah.
So the day after we had it drained, it filled up just a little bit. And I was like, oh, okay, we're going to have the surgery. I'm not even going to fool around with a third time. But then it didn't get any worse and actually seemed to get better. And then just last week, all of a sudden, one morning, her ear was completely full of blood again. So I'm going to have to take her one of these nights and go. We're going to have to go get that drain and get surgery on her. So, but yeah,
is that something that you can see like through the skin, or is it like actually like some's coming out? Like,
no, there's no discharge. There's no discharge, but I'm guessing like cauliflower ear, if she hit it too hard on something, I'm guessing it could bleed. But no, it's just getting like blood in her ear. So gonna have to. So yeah, gonna have to get surgery on that. So that'll put a little hit in the card budget, but she is way more important than cards. She seems to be in relatively good spirits, not too bad. When my wife put her head wrap on this morning to let her outside, she said she did wince a little, which, maybe I think I forgot to give her ibuprofen last night, so I gave her more today. So, yeah, looks like she'll be having surgery, but she's been pretty good all through it. Yeah, we thought maybe we were going to get lucky and get away, but a few days ago it's filled back up again, and then just it is what it is. So we're at about 8 minutes. Were there any of those topics that we didn't touch on that you really wanted to touch on? Because I am good with whatever.
So not from the list, but just briefly, we were talking about recent purchases, and the more you talked and showed off, it was like, I've actually bought a ton of stuff, but it's all on ComC. And we talked about earlier, how do I make time for collecting? If it wasn't for ComC, I don't think I'd have hardly anything to show for it. But I've actually been buying and completing a bunch of sets on ComC. My inventory is probably, I feel like it's probably 5,000 or 10,000 cards, but it's a lot of stuff that needs to be shipped to me. For example, we talk wrestling here and there, but I'm a huge wrestling fan, and especially in cards. And I've kind of went to wrestling cards because there's no value proposition. It's more of, I just like it. I don't worry about selling it or making money or anything like that. I've put a few sets together, and I'm working on Prism Silver sets from 22 and 23, and then the AEW base sets. Well, not the base sets, but the flagship sets I've put together all the years. And then like the first year, I have the base, the blue, or the base, the gold, the pyro, I have inserts. Like I did a master set, not including autographs and relics, but like anything that wasn't numbered and below, I have the sets of, thanks to ePack, because it's cheap, and ComC, and they're just sitting there. I mean, I just have to ship them home, but
so my question to do. So my question becomes, and I get like the parallels maybe, but as far as just the pure base sets, what's your philosophy, thought process on doing that as opposed to just buying the straight base set or the insert set, like on eBay, just buying it together? Or even, yeah, they can be cheap on ePack and they may be as cheap as 3 and 4 cents, but then you've got that fee to ship them home. You can still buy them on sport. Can you still buy them on Sport Lots for 20 cents a piece from one seller, or maybe just 2 or 3 sellers? How does that?
I guess it's more of, it makes me feel better. I don't know if it's actually going to come to fruition as to how I think. But I'm looking at it as, okay, ePack, we'll say the base cards average 3 cents. Some are a penny, some are 5, whatever. If it's 100 cards, say it's $3, we'll say 5 to highball it, and it's a quarter per card to ship. So it's $25. That's $30. It's not terrible for a complete set. I mean, that's a blaster to a degree. And then I kind of felt like, well, the insert sets are definitely going to be more than 30 because but trying to buy it and complete it with blasters and things like that would be way more. But my thought was, well, if I'm spending $25 per set to ship it home and I have $5 to $10 per set in it, $30 is a decent round number. I don't feel so bad.
Yeah, I have no clue.
I don't have to do it all at the same time.
Yeah, true. I have no clue if you know what you can get a completed set for. Again, a lot of people love putting sets together. They love doing it physically in person. You're not doing it physically in person, but you're still putting it together in a different way. And a lot of people just get that satisfaction. The what's the term that people use? Like when you open boxes, you just the value of the experience. I'm you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you mean. Yep. I will say, like, ComC, the app is not my favorite. There's things that can be improved. We've waited 15 years, but now we have it finally. There's that. The one positive I will say in a set building is, let's say for Prism, I can type in 2023 WWE Prism Silver. I can just scroll. And if I find one that's not, like, they dim it, I don't know what, they blur it or whatever, if you have it, it'll say owned. I don't have to go check a checklist. I can just be like, oh, I don't have that one. Boom, buy it. It takes me 30 seconds. But if I would have to go get my paper and check numbers and all this BS, I probably wouldn't be doing as much as I'm doing. But now that they have mentioned, or not that they mentioned, now that they've added this feature of owned or not owned, I can do it easily. And if I buy one I already have for 20 cents, what am I out? You know, I'm out 20 cents. So.
Yeah, I was just, is a set, you know, is you building sets? Yeah, I was just curious how that works. Because, you know, one of the things we talked about was working on sets. Well, I'm working on sets, but they're not like the things you're working on. I'm working on the 87 KB Superstars of Baseball, trying to get it a complete signed set.
Right.
That's one I didn't have here. I actually got the Roger Clemens in the other day, signed for that.
Did you do private signing and send it?
No, that one was just it's an SGC authenticated. I got off eBay. Yeah. I'm working on the Blackhawks. The Black Diamond for 2 of the seasons had Stanley Cup rings, an insert set, and then many know of the Day with the Cup sets, that they're pretty tough singles to find. So working on those kind of sets, the old IndyCar sets, obviously those I have to piece together. I'm not going to find those together. So the set building aspect is different for me than it is for you when you're working on that. So that was kind of why I was thinking about that. Anything else you want to wrap up with, or
let's
say any topics?
I'd say let's finish and go watch Cowboys.
Go ahead. You go ahead and let everybody know if they want to follow you, the where and the
same as always. Jason Dean Martin, pretty much everywhere.
And then I was going to say, I want to make this a more regular thing, just like catching up with, and you know, it'll be Jason and I sometimes. But if anybody just wants to get on, maybe some weekend, and maybe just again kind of bullshit for an hour and a half. Somebody had mentioned that they were. Somebody mentioned they were just listening and sorting cards or doing something. And that's kind of what the intention is here. Just to BS a little, just talk whatever it is. Yeah, we had a list of topics. I think we hit all but a couple of them. But if we hadn't, if we'd hit more, great. If we'd hit less, that was great too. But again, just Jason and I have just known each other so long that, we can just chat. But yeah, if any of you guys decide you want to do that, just get on and just BS. Hit me up. I'd definitely like to do this on a somewhat regular basis. And like I said, yeah, Jason and I'll have more to talk about at some point, but would love to talk with anyone else that wants to join. But we're going to be almost right on 1 hour and 30 minutes as I close this up. So thanks for everyone. I see 3 of you are still here, but one of those is, I think, me. So If you watch this later, thanks for watching. Thanks to everyone who joined in the chat. I like that. I like interacting with the chat because it makes what Jason and I are talking about just flow better, and things that we just don't talk about that, kind of group think from everyone else. If somebody wants to know, then probably somebody else wants to hear the same thing. So thanks everybody. That is it. Like I said, if you decide you want to get on sometime and just BS, it doesn't even have to be a weekend. We might be able to work out a night or something, whenever you have your hobby card time, like Jason and I talked about. That's what I got. So I guess that is it. And we will see you down the road.